Well, nothing makes me happier than being able to hand the reins off to a new HubSpot expert. This is my last HubSpot presentation. So we'll be covering a couple of things today. I do want to introduce Garrett from the Stackery. This is your new residential expert. We'll be around for the next 6 days for all the questions, comments, feedback that you guys have. But yeah, we're going to be covering best practices for how to use HubSpot. Also the title of our presentation. Show of hands in the room. Who's currently using HubSpot? Awesome. Okay, so if you're not using HubSpot, there might be parts of the presentation where we fly a little bit over your head. We can wait for the end. We'll get some questions, and we'll make sure that we address that. But I'm going to kick it over to Gareth. I'm going to go back behind the TV and move some slides around. And without further ado, we'll get things kicked off. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Micah. Firstly, it's great to see some old faces, some new faces. For those that don't know me, I used to work at the USGA. I used to run whoops, Steve. I used to run GiA and IT. So for those that remember the GiA days, me standing up at GiA users, unfortunately, Rick, no vanilla ice wrapping and stuff like that. Those days are long gone. But it's great to be back. As you guys probably know, there's a whole new GiA team. I've moved on. I took some time to reflect and figure out what I wanted to do. And Stackery was born. Stackery was actually born kind of serendipitously through playing golf with some other guys in Denver. You may have heard of Golf Tech. And they were like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I sleep late. I wear the same fat pants every day. I don't brush my teeth for about 3 weeks. And I got nothing else better to do. And they were like, well, why don't you come help us do some work? Fast forward, they were trying to figure out HubSpot. They also bought SkyTrack, which is the launch monitor. They acquired SkyTrack. They had an antiquated system, and they were thinking, like, how the hell do we do that? I'll get into that in a second. But through that whole conversation, Stackery was born. And I was like, what is this thing that I'm going to try and sell to everybody? And is it relevant? And really what I figured out was if I take really solid platforms that are in the market today, that every other company, that every other industry is using, and turn that into golf speak, because guess what I did for 6 years with the USGA, and make it relevant for a community like yourselves and other communities within golf. Can there be a business in it? 10 months later, Stackery is here. I don't have a huge team. I don't have lots of overhead. So the good thing is I'm cheap, relatively. But no, it's been a great experience. As most people know, starting your own business, there's ups and downs, there's pros and cons. You get to sleep late, you don't have to pick your own boss, you get to make the decisions, etc., etc. So it's been a great experience thus far. And when I was speaking to Bill, it was like, hey, can I just come back to IAGA and sit in the audience and listen to what's going on? And he was like, actually, I got a better thing. Speak to Micah. And Micah was like, actually, I got even a better thing for you, that I don't want to do HubSpot discussions anymore. You should definitely come and do this. So lo and behold, if you guys do want to talk HubSpot, if you do want to have discussions about it, I'm not here to sell you HubSpot, by the way. So if you're thinking that we're going to talk about contracts and pricing, frankly, I don't give a shit what you guys are going to spend on HubSpot. That's not my job here to try to sell you on that. My job here is to help you guys maximize what you're doing, because it is expensive, right? Most people that sit on HubSpot, it's not your easy budget line item that's going to be like, oh, we're not even thinking about it. Let's move forward. So we'll get into more of that. We'll get into some case study, or a case study I'll show you in terms of why HubSpot and why a certain company chose HubSpot, and then we'll go some best practices. I use that term loosely because, as many of you know, with HubSpot you can slice the cat many ways, right? You could do these things. Custom objects, you can do different properties, you can use the built-in objects, etc., etc. No one really knows if it's right or wrong, but there are some key differences if you go one way or the other way. And learning how to use that in HubSpot makes a pretty big difference for how you want to scale it in the future. So we'll touch on a few of those things. And by the way, if you guys are doing some of these things, awesome, and I'll get you guys to raise hands, because I'm going to send other AJs your way to actually learn from how you guys have done it, because I've been disconnected from this community for a bit. I've had the pleasure of working with Rick and figuring out what they're doing at Oregon. He's probably the power user of power users. So he's not a great example for you guys to go and leverage right now, because most of you are either getting started, you're deep in it, you're trying to figure it all out. Is this really worth the investment you guys make? So we'll go through all that in a little bit as well. All right. Oh, we can skip through those mugshots.
Other people.
So where are you guys at the moment? So I got this from HubSpot. There are 23 AGAs right now that's using HubSpot. 3 of those are using business units, and there's 4 AGAs that are rolled up into those business units as well. But if you think about the investment of 2.5 million contacts that are being used just in that 23 AGAs, that's huge. That's pretty big. And the thing that's interesting is HubSpot never talks about the size of the contracts or the size of marketing, because they just want to charge you on marketing contacts. When you think about the growth potential just in 23 AGAs, are we really maximizing what we're doing, and are we capturing the full 2.5 million? I can guarantee you guys aren't capturing the 2.5 million yet, because it doesn't just happen in HubSpot. There's a marketing strategy, there's a business strategy, there's operations, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we've heard, obviously, with Dave's presentation as well. That needs to go into all this thinking and then back into HubSpot. HubSpot is not going to just deliver revenue and ROI straight out. So one of the stats that's interesting, just across the group, so out of the 23 AGAs, a lot of you guys are using, or a lot of the 23 AGAs are using Marketing Hub and Sales Hub. You put that together, they are seeing, you guys are seeing, 67% of that close in terms of memberships, in terms of deals, includes things that are trying to upgrade people into different levels of membership, etc., etc. But the interesting one is some of you have taken it one step further and introduced Service Hub, and putting all those 3 together actually helps close deals quicker. When we say this word deals, close deals, really what it is if you have membership, if you're trying to convert people, if you're trying to upgrade, upsell people to different memberships, etc., etc., having Service Hub actually benefits. Now, as you guys know, Service Hub ain't free. There's actually money that needs to be invested in it, and you need to think about what that looks like. But you can see the difference in terms of closures and conversion rates if that actually happens when you put the 3 together. So why HubSpot? I'm going to take you through a quick case study here just to show you some of the breadth of what can be possible in HubSpot. So as I said, I did some work with GiA&x Skytrack. They purchased Skytrack. They've spent probably a good part of 18 months really trying to integrate Skytrack into their existing architecture. It was antiquated, it was custom, it was a pain in the ass, they couldn't do anything, they couldn't get data, the executive team didn't have reports they trusted. It was dismal. They then said, we've got a launch monitor company, we've got a training company that has coaching for golf. We want to put the 2 together. And we said, hold on, that's a little tough. Oh, and by the way, not only do we want to put it together, it needs to be done before the first Black Friday so that we can actually change the way we market sales and discounts and things like that. So they gave me a target to say, you've got 9 weeks to redo that little third swim lane to basically implement all those tools and find a common ground where all our departments can basically find the central point. So they didn't choose, obviously, HubSpot's website, they chose Shopify. Obvious reasons, they were selling launch monitors, they were selling closures, mats, bowls, etc., etc. They then decided, you know what, obviously there's inventory. There's physical devices, there's walls of mats, these things are heavy, they need an inventory system. They need a support system, Zoom, Happy Fox was a chat system that they used, and then they wanted to put all this together in Segment. And for those that don't know Segment, we won't get into it now, but GiA&x use Segment, Skytrack use Segment. It's a way to combine those customer profiles and move that customer profile wherever you want it. In this case, they wanted to move it to HubSpot. So 9 weeks started, put all those systems together, put all of that stuff into HubSpot. I'm not going to go into how we did it in HubSpot, but it was all integration. It was custom work. There were custom objects. There were natural objects. There were reports. There were data sets that got pushed into it. There were CSV uploads. You can basically think about everything. Every single touch point that we would have thought about was in HubSpot. You can see the metrics at the bottom. Killed it. Their record Black Friday year that they've ever had in the history of GiA&x. Granted, Skytrack was a brand new client, or a brand new company in their arsenal, but they killed it. Revenues were way up. The development team sat around and said, what do we do now? They had an offshore development team. They cut all the developers because guess what? Marketing had the power to basically click the buttons. Marketing had the power to build workflows. Marketing had the power to figure out how to send email campaigns. They had no reliance on development whatsoever. The best part of it all was all the teams that touched each one of those applications historically sat in all different departments. Their logistics team was able to see what the help desk was doing. The help desk was able to see what calls were coming in. The marketing team was able to figure out what was going on inside of help desk. Everybody got to cross collaborate and figure out what was going on and then react. And it made it huge for the company to react, collaborate, change the direction of certain marketing messages, change the direction of triggers. All of that stuff happened in reactive times. No developers ever. So when I set this up, I remember the day they were saying, is this gonna fall over with Black Friday? Is the servers gonna hold up? And I'm like, there is no servers. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's all on HubSpot. It's all on Zoom. It's all on Shopify. And they were just like, what happens if it falls over? We have no backup. And I'm like, it's not gonna fall over. These are publicly traded companies. They got wealth of money invested in these things. It ain't gonna fall over. Lo and behold, obviously it never fell over. The HubSpot stuff really here was the glue that brought all of this together. Without HubSpot, none of this stuff would have been possible in 9 weeks. And frankly speaking, I don't think I would ever want to do it in 9 weeks ever again because it was a hell of a lot of work. But when you say why HubSpot, you're thinking, well, it's expensive. It's there's a lot to learn. Do I really want to make the jump into it? I'm not here to tell you to make the jump or don't make the jump. You guys have to figure that out by yourself. Happy to talk and help you and guide you with that stuff. But it's not as easy as you think, right? And I know HubSpot, they sort of tout themselves, if it's easy to use. It is easy to use when you spend time training, learning the structures, learning the terminology, understanding the taxonomy that goes with it, etc. It is fast in terms of results. Again, it's not a magic bullet, right? It's not going to just give you, boom, here's your 3x your marketing engagement campaigns. It doesn't work like that. You need the content, you need the strategy, you need the setup. It only churns out the stuff that you actually put in. And then lastly, unified data. Again, I would probably say it's probably one of my favorite parts in HubSpot is not actually having to log into 16 different systems and exporting to CSVs and then put it back in, blah, 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 blah. Click button, filter, I have my view in a single view. One of the things that I actually, this is pretty funny. Rick and I experienced this at HubSpot. We sat down, quick little side story. We sat down on the table waiting for one of the HubSpot salespeople, and this lady sat down. And we're like, how long have you been coming to HubSpot? 7 years?
She's been there 8 years.
8 years. Oh, do you use HubSpot? Nope. Wait, what? You've been coming to the conference for 8 years and you don't use HubSpot? She's like, no, I just take all their ideas, I go back to my company, I present them, and I get the increases and bonuses that they want to pay me. And we were like, that's crazy. But she left me with a thought that first bullet there is, she said something to us that HubSpot is highly configurable, but not very customizable. And I know you and I sort of chatted about that. We're like, wow, that's actually a little light bulb moment that is really, really impressive. That it is for those that use HubSpot. You can see, you can go figure the thing up towards Zoom. But you want to change colors and put this here and move the screens around. It's not very customizable like Salesforce is, right? For those that want Salesforce users, it's very customizable. One of the other things was, and we joked about this as well, but every time they said AI at HubSpot's conference, we would have been drunk in about 15 seconds. As you can imagine, AI is this new big hype, right? Everybody hears about it, everybody's saying it. What does it really mean, right? And what I've personally said is, I'm not quite over the hump yet on just using AI for everything. Granted, my privacy policies and some documents are from ChatGPT, but I'm not saying that HubSpot's going to AI and HubSpot's going to solve all your problems. But there are some significant strides that HubSpot have made to actually improve AI in a big way, and you'll see some of that products coming out in the future. All right, so the big question is HubSpot worth the investment? And like I said to you, I'm not saying it is, it's not, whatever you guys are saying, or whatever you guys need to spend it on, but what I will say is, if you purchase HubSpot and you're expecting it to just magically work for you, it ain't gonna work for you. If you want to purchase HubSpot and you're ready for it, it can do wonderful things. If you have HubSpot and you're willing to spend more on HubSpot, we should talk. If you are going to use HubSpot and you don't want to spend the money, you ain't going to get very far. Some of those things may sound, well, duh, that's obvious. Well, it's not really that obvious, because there are other options. There's business units, which some of you have probably heard the term. We'll go into a little bit of pros and cons with that. There are some other vendor relations that you can help. There's some shared services that can help you with stuff like that. But it all comes at a cost. And it's how do we share some of that cost across this community? And that's a little bit of where, some of the help that I can bring to it as well. Resources, like I said, there's thousands of vendors out there. So just like myself, some of you have used Wall Street, we'll mention that lightly. Blue Leads, Salted Stone, there's a bunch of them out there that you guys are starting to come across. And they are, by the way, some of the best vendors that you could probably find. The one thing that I would ask is, a lot of my experience working with those vendors is project-based. So when it all goes live, who's there to help you? That's one thing I would say to think about, right? There is a post-process that happens when you launch HubSpot. And as everyone knows in the software industry, the real work starts when it's all live. Setting it all up and playing around with it and testing it all, that's all great fun and learning new things. But when you're actually live, that's when the rubber meets the road. So just whenever you guys think about vendors, if it's me, if it's anybody else, there needs to be some form of post-process that comes after going live. Even if it's 3 months, 6 months, there needs to be some warranty, and that would be my tip to you when you think about engaging other vendors. And then ROI. This is always an interesting question. Am I going to get an ROI on HubSpot? Well, what does your marketing strategy look like? What business strategy do you actually have in generating revenue? Because like we've seen, it ain't going to do it by itself. And HubSpot is purely a tool and a mechanism to drive those strategies. So when you ask ROI, it's no different if you were using the 15 different systems like MailChimp, et cetera, et cetera. However, the one thing I will say is most folks that I've seen some board meeting presentations and how you're presenting it to certain executives, et cetera, you don't think about the time and the efficiency and the work that goes into logging into 6 different systems, downloading 6 different spreadsheets, uploading it into something, doing VLOOKUPs, blah, 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 blah. There's money that goes in, time that goes into all of that you can cut down pretty quickly using HubSpot. That might not be tangible for you to generate an ROI, but I guarantee you there's 15 people working in HubSpot and 15 people that weren't in HubSpot, there would be some cost savings across your organization pretty quickly. And my favorite, HubSpot ain't no magician, right? I think I've said that enough times. It ain't gonna go anywhere. This is a little quote that I've sort of been living by pretty frequently on all the HubSpot stuff that I've done is, there is a balance, right? And there's multiple ways to do implementations and onboarding and integrations that come with it. But if we keep it simple, it becomes a lot easier to manage. And some of that's sort of a broad stroke that's, how can we keep it simple in HubSpot? Well, there are ways and there are best practices to keep it simple. But the reason why I say keep it simple is because if you want to keep adding to it, if you want to keep bringing different memberships, youth on course, first T, whatever it may be, if you don't have the right paradigm put in place at the start, this gets really, really complicated, and HubSpot gets really, really expensive at that point. So a lot of these practices that I've seen put in place, and what I would say configurations, is if we can do this in a simple way and abstract them into a few more swim lanes that you would possibly see, it actually becomes easier to manage going forward and scale. All right, so switching to some best practices. Again, I'm not saying these are the best practices that are going to guarantee you hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are things I've seen in the marketplace. These are actually related to some sports organizations out there as well. This will, what I would say, if you went to HubSpot and said, hey, do these practices actually work? They'd probably say yes, they're guaranteed to work. But without a marketing strategy, without anything to actually back these things up, these are just tactics, right? So take this with a little bit of food for thought, that if you're a marketer in the room, you're an IT person in the room, take that back and think about, how do I actually think about these things in relation to my marketing strategy, into my membership engagement strategy, working with Micah and team. How do we think about these things differently than maybe what we've been doing currently? All right, so campaign management. Some of this is a little bit, well, you can flip to the next slide actually. This is a little bit one-on-one, but segmentation, right? Firstly, who doesn't know what segmentation is? Okay, that's a good start. So with segmentation, what I would say to you guys is a lot of times I've seen segmentation, which is you log into HubSpot and you see just lists. Everybody has their property list and everybody sees this. I did this for kids that were under 13. I did this for females that were playing more than 10 rounds. And there's just lists upon lists upon lists. And you're not really getting any value out of the segmentation. So what I would say to you, one of the things I've seen is think about segmentation as almost if you were in a pipeline. How do you move Gareth from onboarding experience, his first 10 days with engagement, the content you're delivering with smart content? How do you move into a super user? How do you move into an avid golfer, et cetera, et cetera? Whatever those life cycle stages look like, how do you actually make your segmentation move Gareth from one list to the next list all the way up to basically making him whatever your final category would be, which could be avid. That's what the power of segmentation actually gives you in HubSpot, not just the ability to send an email to a list of people that comes out of it. Because to be fair, MailChimp can do that pretty easily too. Multi-channel strategy. How many of you guys have text messages integrated into HubSpot? 1, 2, 3-ish. One of the biggest engagement points that HubSpot will feed you is text messages drives more engagement, which is kind of obvious, right? How many of us look at our text messages quicker than we read the 165 emails we get every minute, right? So it's an obvious strategy, but how do you put that into HubSpot? How do you think about that as your tactics going forward? What do you put in text message that wouldn't be an email and vice versa? So what I would say to you guys is think about text messages as you think about next year's planning. Think about how you would engage people on mobile. Together with smart content, we'll get a little bit of that in Content Hub, but together with smart content, you can tie that to a text message. Look at what they're doing on the engagement, build a segmented list of that. There's a lot of those triggering things that come out of that will be pretty helpful for you guys as well.
All right.
That's okay. Analytics. So one of the things that I found very interesting in HubSpot, so who actually plugged in the HubSpot tracking with all the analytics inside their websites? You embed the little copy code you give to the developer, you plug it in. When I first did it, I was just like, man, this is a pain in the butt. It stores all this data, it sends it to HubSpot. Now I got all this noise in HubSpot, what's going on? The best part of that is, and this is maybe a little techie, but it drops a cookie on everybody's browser, and everything you do from that point on, it sends that data back to HubSpot. Little big brother-ish, some may say, but welcome to marketing to 2025. It is hugely valuable for that cookie to be present on someone's browser. Now, as you guys know, you can clear your history, clear your cookies, and all that disappears. They have to do it all over again. But the amount of analytics that you can get, not only from that cookie being dropped, but all the analytics that comes together with opening up the email, getting the email delivered, seeing the campaign results that come out of that, can cross-collaborate with this cookie, and you can actually start getting personalized information for Gareth Lund, avid golfer, plays 6 times a week. And you can start doing some really informative information, smart content, email triggers, etc., with that. A/B testing. Anybody done A/B testing? A couple of you guys. We'll take a shot for this for the first time I say it, but AI for the A/B testing piece, pretty awesome in HubSpot. Really powerful, really smart. Probably one of the best use cases I've seen AI being used inside of HubSpot. It helps you change the language, change the tone. There's some other stuff you can play with now on setting the data there for it. But I would really recommend looking at A/B testing, not only for your email campaigns. You can do it on content, you can do it on text messages as well. So think about that from an engagement tactic on, can I send my avid golfers versus my onboarded first-time users slightly different messages, slightly different content, and drive them ultimately to conversion. Could be an interesting way to see what tactics actually work and what content drives people to actually convert. And then content personalization. I mean, this, for me, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other low-hanging fruit ones that I think that HubSpot has done really well. But content on a mobile device and content on your desktop and content on email is as easy as clicking 3 buttons in HubSpot. which is pretty impressive when you think about all the level. If you guys use MailChimp and all those other things, it would take you a long time to figure out how to send content to different places. HubSpot literally does it in 3 or 4 clicks, and you can customize content to Gareth versus Rick versus Mario in 3 different messages on 3 different devices. Best part of it all, not that I'm selling you this, but there's a product called Remix. You can actually post content into that. It will generate AI. It will send all that content basically to you guys, to the 3 of us, in all different messages and all different devices. And I just put in a title and some copy text, and Remix did the rest for you. So there are some really, really powerful things in content that can help with campaign management. Because again, most of us will say, and we heard Dave today, right? How am I valued differently than I am to Tony, right? I'm an avid golfer. Tony plays 100 times a year. I play 200 times a year. Why am I different, right? I'm buying lots of money, or I'm spending lots of money on golf. Matt doesn't spend that much money at all. Why should I feel valued by my club, by my association, etc.? This is a great way to start getting some personal touch with your membership without actually doing much work. Workflow automation. This is probably the geekiest one of all, because this is my favorite one. Because you don't actually have to write code a lot of the times to do workflow. It's drag and drop, it's click, and understanding how to build workflows. Who finds workflows intimidating? Awesome. Who thinks they built out a pretty sophisticated workflow? You? Awesome. What were some of the learnings you took out of that?
A lot of timing with delays and certain
Yeah.
milestones. And sometimes in HubSpot with the complexities of automations, sometimes it's easier to do multiple automations instead of all in one automation itself.
Love it. You literally touched on the same point that I was going to make, which is if you can simplify your workflows to do one task at a time and not bundle them all in one big workflow, you will save yourself a hell of a lot of pain and headache down the line. It's not always as simple as that, but if you can literally do one thing at a time and break them, abstract them out, scaling workflows will be extremely powerful. And I really harp on that because I've seen people go down the rabbit hole of building this really complicated workflow, and they sort of beat their chest and be like, look how complicated this is. And I'm like, change one thing. Oh crap, we have to clone it, redo everything, delete everything. Basically, it takes them a bunch of days to basically figure out what they did in the workflow. So my sort of tip on workflow is make it as simple as possible with an asterisk, but try and figure out how to do one task at a time in those workflows. These are some of the, I don't think I need to talk to you guys about some of these trigger points, but new member journeys, renewals, re-engagement campaigns. I think almost every one of you have to be doing this at some point. Forget about HubSpot for a second. In MailChimp, this is how you run membership engagement. Am I right or am I wrong? Some of those tactics, familiar to all of you, some of you, none of you? Rick? You shaking your head. I mean, this is bread and butter of membership engagement, right? Nothing really different in HubSpot with this, but the best part of all that is you can actually do triggers without you guys having to figure things out. You can move, with segmentation, move customers through the life cycle and figure out what content you want to distribute, when you want to distribute it, use some AI, and trigger something else to Gareth where only Gareth gets it at that time of the day. Tony and Matt get it next week because they've reached their milestone. Why not use the power of workflow to actually drive personalization, engagement, more metrics, more properties? It's endless. However, if you don't plan for it, this could get really, really messy and complicated. I heard one story yesterday, someone said, well, we started with HubSpot, we did a happy birthday campaign, and everybody got it. Whoops. That's going to happen, right? It's bound to happen, and best way of learning is making a mistake. Granted, everybody gets a happy birthday email, but at least you got to speak to the customer at some point. But those things are bound to happen. You got to learn from it. It's not a train smash, because guess what you do? And most companies do this now. Sorry, we had a glitch. Here's some other things you need to think about. And they add some advertising to it. They add some other broad strokes to it that basically gets them engaged. Trendy golf. Whoever shops at Trendy Golf, They do a lot of that, almost now becoming frequent, where once a month, oh, we have a technical glitch, and by the way, get the G4 latest shoes for $29.99. Wait, what? Somewhere in there's someone that's clicking that and being like, yeah, I'm going for that. Not a terrible tactic, but not something you guys want to get frequently FAQs out of all that comes with that as well. Lead scoring. Who uses leads? The actual prospecting leads in HubSpot? No one? All right. It is really, really powerful to figure out how to use leads and make them contacts and convert them to paid subscribers, paid members, paid customers, whatever it may be. Great metrics, great templates, great analytics that come with that, and it gives you the ability to actually nurture your leads in different ways. So a lot of the lead scoring stuff that's built into HubSpot, probably, if not the best lead scoring management system in IT software at this point in time. I'm yet to see anybody else sort of smash it out. And I don't know if there's any avid Salesforce users. They were pretty much the leader in the market, but I think HubSpot's taking over on the lead management stuff. We won't dive. If you guys want to talk about lead separately, since none of you are using it, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But if you want to talk about lead management, let me know. Happy to take you through how leads manifests itself to actual customers and content and things like that. And then, as I shared, good practice, right? Multiple workflows, like I said, keep them simple. It will help you and save you from pulling out your hair later down the road. Membership engagement. So again, some of these things you guys would have seen. Milestone celebrations, the happy birthday email, the easiest one of all. So for example, I'll give you one that's interesting. When we started with SkyTrack, the first one was when you purchased your launch monitor, we just send you an email that says, hey, thanks for purchasing your launch monitor. What we started actually realizing was, well, it sits there for 3 days for Stripe to do its thing, take the payment, do the credit card processing. But the customer doesn't know what's going on. They're just checking the tracking every time and seeing the status is going. So we introduced a trigger point that said, once the transaction is done, 2 days later, send an email to the customer saying, while you're waiting, here's some things for you to do. When the thing actually shipped, it was like, guess what? Get ready for it. Are you prepared to do these 3 things? Once they got it and they turned the power on and it synced to the internet and blah, 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 they sent another email that said, we're so excited you got your device. We're really happy you're ready to get started. By the way, if you want to do this, upgrade the membership to X, Y, and Z. 3 emails. They converted almost every single time a membership was upgraded. Because they basically softballed the customer in terms of, what are you going to do when you get it set up? All these new things that I really wanted to do. Well, guess what you're going to do? You're going to play Pebble Beach if you upgrade the software to X. You can only really capture all your metrics if you upgrade it to X. You can imagine some customers got a little pissed because it was like, oh, you told me I could do all this stuff. You didn't read the fine print at the bottom, which, as we all know, that sort of comes with the territory. Personalized content recommendations. So this was an interesting one. Again, I'll use SkyTrack as the example. They would go and play Pebble Beach. I would hit 1,000 shots, and people would be like, all right, so now what? We figured out that most people that were playing Pebble Beach on the SkyTrack, at least within 2 weeks, they were researching to actually go play Pebble Beach in reality. They looked at it on their mobile device, because we know the cookie tracking. We looked at the referral URLs that were coming in, where they were going, and where they were responding to. They got more information from a launch monitor than they did from the actual purchase of the customer. Which for SkyTrack, they were like, whoa, hold on, you just opened a whole new ballgame for us that we never knew about. Then they started getting a little bit more engaged, and they were doing drip campaigns. My first 1,000 shots, my first hole-in-one, my first online play with a friend. Every time they did something, they would basically trigger out these workflows in email and send content. And be like, hey, Gareth, you just got a hole-in-one. Have you thought about going to your local golf tech store and getting practice on putting? Have you thought about going to get better from a 10 handicap to a 3 handicap, etc., etc.? They started building all this into it because they had all these touch points that, by the way, previously all they would have done is sent me an email that said upgrade for $65 to the premium membership. And I would have no value. I would have got it, Stacy would have got it, Tony would have got it, we all would have got the exact same email. Now they've customized it completely. Everybody's email almost looks different. They've seen huge upticks in membership. In fact, I think membership is almost on par as some of their sales, which is kind of crazy to think a $3,000 device, which is a pretty expensive purchase, is almost the same as a $299 membership. And they all got that through reporting and analytics out of HubSpot. None of them had so many brainchild. You're like, oh, I got a great marketing tactic. They just started using it and seeing the metrics that was coming out of that. Community building. Robin, you guys have started thinking about community building in terms of driving people to community sites. Looking at value offers, right? This is not new stuff, by the way. There's a lot of this marketing tactics that are out there as well, but going to one central point for your customer and actually enticing them to figure out what's valuable to them. All of you guys have tons of benefits. What do you advertise as benefits? In an email? How many emails do we get? How many benefits in that email is relevant to me on the first 3 lines? None of us can answer that yet. Maybe some of us that are doing really, really sophisticated campaigns could, but you have that power right now to do some of that stuff. Again, setting it all up in HubSpot may not be the easiest thing right now, but you have that power to figure out how to do all these things with a few click of the buttons. And then lastly, consistent value communication. This is probably the hardest, and again, I would say this is the hardest one that HubSpot recommends HubSpot can do. And I would say, I don't think it's a tool thing. I think this is where AI sort of defeats the purpose. What do you guys do as marketers? What do you guys do that's running the communication? How do you set the tone of your brand? That stuff AI doesn't do very well. And anybody that uses AI a lot, context in AI is not there yet. You try and write a love letter, a fake love letter on ChatGPT and see how interesting it gets. It's not very emotional that comes out of it. So a lot of the consistent value communication, I'd say, try and figure out what your brand kit is. How many use brand kits? A couple of you use brand kits. Think about brand kits, right? Think about the tone. Another little AI thing that's coming out in HubSpot is you can actually add the tone to your brand kit. So when you're writing your copy or your PR team's writing your copy and you go, does this really sound like it should sound for my brand? And you go, 100% it should. You can actually just right click and say add to my brand kit. And from that point on, all the tone and stuff will actually be configured to feel and read like your brand aesthetics and things like that. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with that. But again, I'd say the tool is just a mechanism. Your marketing team is really the power that drives this. Some advanced features. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. The one thing I'd say for the advanced piece of this is, and I know this is sort of a der moment, but if you can get as much data about your customer into HubSpot, you can do so much more that comes out of HubSpot. And I know it sounds obvious, but all the payment interactions, all your mobile traffic, all your analytics from Google, every touch point that you have with your customer, if anything can get piped into HubSpot, do it as much as you possibly can. Because if your unified record is HubSpot, the workflows, the content, the analytics that comes out of that will be as powerful as you can ever think of. I don't think there is another platform, certainly that all of you guys are thinking about and are using, that can do the power that you guys would have here. So whatever you can do with properties, whatever you can do with extra data, whatever advanced data that gives the different look of Gareth or advances Gareth's look in your database, send it as much as you possibly can and keep it updated in HubSpot. The other piece of this is conversation lines. Anybody plugged in their telephone system, help desk software into HubSpot? You have GiA&x. So you guys would know all the transcripts. So we use Zoom at Skytrack, and we plugged in the transcripts. So every time someone called in, the profile will pop up, Gareth, he's lost ticket, he's lost complaint, he's lost purchase, everything else that you can imagine comes with that. Afterwards, the transcript will get put to the contact record. You could build workflows off that. Even now, one step further, you can use AI to extract certain things and trigger multiple series of campaigns that come out of that. So the telephone system is actually, ironically, one of the more powerful things that gets plugged into HubSpot if you actually use it. If you don't save the transcripts, if you don't actually, Robin's shaking your head, it's wasted opportunities for you to actually figure things out. Another example in Skytrack, people would get pissed off because they couldn't switch on, they didn't know where the power button is on the device. So they would phone in, I hate this thing, I spent $3,000, where's the power button? What they did through a drip campaign is rather than send the next thing to say, hey Rick, upgrade to the premium membership even though your power button can't be found, they delayed that by 7 days because they had the data to figure out that Rick's transcript was a frowny face, really angry with not being able to find the power button. Timing, engagement made a huge difference because guess what? I'm not going to upgrade when I can't even turn on the device and I spent $3,000. I'm not in the right frame of mind to do that. So this is the type of thing that a lot of the conversation analytics that comes out of it with transcripts and automation was usually valuable for Skype.
The last one.
Yeah, go. Some of the spotlight features. So for those that were at HubSpot's conference, you would have seen some of this if you were following online, if you've read about it. There's some cool things. There's just, I don't know, Mario Rick, there's probably about 260 different implementations of new stuff that was in HubSpot. I pulled out the ones that I think are relevant for this audience right now. But Breeze Analytics and Breeze Copilot, I think for you guys that log into HubSpot, you'll see a little top right-hand corner that says Copilot. Think about it as your HubSpot cat, right? It's getting more intelligent every time we use it. Ask it something, summarize Garrett's profile. It will give you some basic stats about what Garrett's profile looks like. Give me the LTV value of what Garrett's going to look like if he purchases another $65 sweater. It will basically generate some of that information for you. So it's getting really, really smart, a little scary at the same time because some of us are going to be irrelevant in terms of figuring that out really quickly. But that's what Breeze is. On top of that, they're actually giving you Breeze Analytics, which is an enhanced data pack that actually sends data into HubSpot from different sources. Forget the number of sources, but they trail all around the web and they go, for IAGA, here's the 65 properties that IAGA has inside of the World Wide Web. Comes all into HubSpot. You guys can now figure out what you want to do with that company record. They're only doing it on companies. They're not doing it on contacts. You can imagine for privacy reasons, it gets a little sticky. Forms. On the Marketing Hub, those who have built forms know that HubSpot's marketing forms are not the greatest form builder. It's pretty basic, right? It's pretty simple, it's pretty easy. They're now going to dynamic forms. So you can build step-throughs, you can build wizards, you can build a whole bunch of different form type data, as well as figure out how to actually minimize the number of fields. So you don't have to put your email address on a form. You don't have to fill in all your first name and last name. If that cookie that I mentioned earlier is on your machine, it will pre-populate all that information in HubSpot for you. Super powerful. Obviously, improves the customer experience when you don't have to fill out my first name, my last name, my street address, my age, my date of birth, and so on and so on and so on. As I said, SMS. We talked about you guys actually using SMS as an engagement tactic. They're now making it that you can reply inside HubSpot to the text message. So you can literally build two-way communication using text message. Obviously, it's not free, but it's super, super valuable. On the Sales Hub, probably the lightest touch in terms of implementation, but tons more reporting templates that come out with HubSpot. So if you guys are looking to build custom dashboards or there's things around sales that you want to do for churn or length of closure to your deals, etc. There's some new reports that come out that just templates. You don't have to build them, you just add them to your dashboard and off you go. The sequencing, how many use inside sales in your AGAs? Like actually call customers or call vendors to convert them? No one really does this. So this one, the dynamic sequences are interesting. You can do, it's almost, I always sort of think about it as step throughs, right? If you have 10 steps, you get that's your sequence. How do you break someone out of that fifth step and move them into something different? HubSpot never allowed you to do that at the beginning unless you wrote some already complicated workflows. Now with dynamic sequencing, you can actually move someone along a journey, move them out to the different sequence, and then even stop that sequence at halfway through. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with sequence, but it's a lot of it's inside sales, which is probably not relevant for you guys right now. And then Service Hub. So this one makes me laugh the most because at HubSpot, their CTO was like, you don't have to hire someone anymore, you can use an AI agent. And I'm like, so someone's going to do all the work for me? That sounds pretty cool. I'll speak for myself. I don't trust it yet. But really what this Breeze agent is, it actually does what a human would do in service desk. It responds to customers, it can build workflows, it can be setting up certain triggers, it can do stuff that you and I would do in HubSpot all by itself. You obviously have to set it up, but that agent can actually do the work of a human being. A little scary, I'll speak for myself, but if you think about where service is going, and if you guys have the trouble of, there's only 2 of us in an AGA, how do we respond to all these customer comments, how do we engage with customers, etc., etc. There is an option, you just have to get very comfortable with using it.
Karen, can I just say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely, please, go ahead.
So I tried to use the AI chatbot and had it programmed to look in our knowledge base. And the trouble I was finding is it was taking 2 similar articles, but because it's golf, sometimes nuance, it just doesn't understand the nuance, and so it would blend the article into a long answer.
Yep.
So at least for now, we don't have that turned on. We have a more traditional chatbot.
Yeah, we should do a proof of concept, maybe even for this community, is use the new Breeze analytics and see how it tags it differently in the context that comes with it. Be interested to see if their models have actually updated since then. But worth a check.
To speak on that real quick, we're from Youth on Course, so we have a lot of different audiences that we're speaking to, and the chatbot was doing the same thing. And we removed you from, instead of saying you, we said alumni or donors. And we actually used the audience name, and that helped improve it a lot.
Yeah, so again, adding context, right? AI has not yet really nailed the context piece of it. Business units, probably the one single most asked question when I come back into the golf community, not only by AGAs, but other companies that are acquiring other companies, other people that have multiple brands, etc. Why would I use a business unit? When's the right time to use a business unit? Should I just use a business unit because I can't afford HubSpot? You can see the pros and cons here. The first one is the most obvious one, is cost. If you are an AGA and can't afford to go into your own portal, business unit is an option. And I say it is an option because there are limitations that come with that. Is anybody, Mario, I know you in business unit, Stacy, you don't have a business unit? You don't run a business unit?
No.
No? Okay. So Mario, you're the only one that's using, and you're in the business unit, right? So I would say, if there's some learnings with this is, there's a lot of work that goes into setting up the business unit, maintaining the business unit. Let me take one step back. How many people actually know what a business unit is? All right, so most of you know what the business unit is. Okay. So what I would say, and personally when I get asked this question, my first thing is it a cost implication, or is it a resource constraint, or is it just because you don't give a shit about this and you want someone else to manage it? It's a viable option. Most folks are saying, can't afford it, I run a 2-person AGA, I don't have the time to go learn HubSpot. Well, that's a real problem. My reaction is, well, do you trust your friend on the other side in the AGA not to make a mistake and send out a happy birthday email to everybody? Right? If it's not a big deal if that happy birthday email goes out, then why not use a business unit? Are you okay if Garrett Lon's profile gets seen by the other AGA and all the data related to that? You okay with that? Business unit makes a lot of sense. If you don't have people that want to learn HubSpot and engage on the platform and actually start using certain things in HubSpot, and someone else has all this power and resource already going, and you want to be left behind, business unit makes a lot of sense. If you want to start getting integrations done, and you want to start pulling in different things, it's not as easy as that. If you want to be flexible, if you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to do things your own AGA way, business unit isn't going to give you the flexibility to do that. I'm not going to tell you which one's the right one or the wrong one because it doesn't really, it's not a black and white answer that says, hey, you should go business unit, you should. It really is a conversation amongst you and your peers on can you help each other, can you figure it out, doesn't make a lot of sense for you in the AGA. I've seen some AGAs talk about it where they go, I'm going to start on the business unit and then later I'm going to go into my own portal. You're doing the work twice. It gets a little easier once you're in HubSpot because all those data models that come out, you can import them back into your own portal pretty easily. But you really need to answer, is that going to be viable from a cost perspective, from a resource perspective? And like I said from the beginning, are you guys ready to take on HubSpot? Because you require resources to run it. Forget about AI for a second. It doesn't run by itself. Yep. So just to wrap up, and I think we have some time for Q&A, but I think what I've learned in terms of summary and using HubSpot for a while now, there's very few platforms that focus on growth and are actually helping companies grow. Yes, you got to feed the engine, you got to feed the beast, but when you do feed it, it does actually turn out results and give you certain ROIs that you really need. It is easy, fast, unified, and all the sort of buzzwords that HubSpot marketers use, but it only is as good as the effort you put in. If you train yourself, if you think about it, if you go into the knowledge base, which by the way, HubSpot probably has one of the best knowledge bases out there, you could go down a rabbit hole and actually spend a lot of time learning about HubSpot on those videos and those articles. But once you actually understand it, it's super, super powerful. It's not cheap. It can do a lot of stuff, but it ain't going to save you money in the short term. You have to be ready and willing to invest in it. Otherwise, you'll see that line item every year on your budget, and you'll be like, am I really willing to spend this money every year? Is it really providing an ROI for me? Do I really want to use it as a marketer? I'm not the person to answer that for you guys. I've said this multiple times. Without a marketing strategy, HubSpot is useless. You guys that are on MailChimp, that just send your emails on the 1st and the 15th, and don't want to talk to your customers that often, please stay on MailChimp. You will waste a lot of money if that's all you want to do on HubSpot. And I say that facetiously, but I mean it. You don't need a Ferrari to drive 2 months. The best way to learn is through collaboration. I think some of you that I've worked with, Rob and I probably pick on you a little bit. We've had some discussions on HubSpot and we're like, oh yeah, we'll do that. And next week we'll get together and review. Yeah, it doesn't work out quite the way we wanted it to. There are some bottlenecks, there's some of this, there's some of that. We learned this, we learned that. We have to change some of the solution that we identified. Is that fair to say? It doesn't work by you guys just doing it in a vacuum. The more you each can share on how things are working, what you guys are doing, how you've accomplished certain things, makes this a lot easier to digest. And by the way, you have to pay vendors to go and learn all this stuff or tell you all this stuff. You can just say, here's my spec, I want it implemented like this. They may ask questions and you go, well, I've learned because 16 other AGAs are doing it like this and they see results. We want the same results, or better. And then lastly, selfishly, a little plug. If you guys need help, there are thousands and thousands of vendors to help you. I would selfishly say there's not many that know golf extremely well. It's a little bit of what I'm carving out as the niche, but certainly if you think about automation, if you think about just general technology, you think about marketing tactics. Rick, I'd say you use Salted Stone, probably one of the best marketing technology agencies out there, correct? Probably learned a ton from you, or you've learned a ton from them on HubSpot and how they've implemented a bunch of things. Yeah. So some of these agencies aren't just tech experts and HubSpot experts. They've seen so much happen in HubSpot. They've got thousands of clients in HubSpot. There's some best practices you guys could take from them without necessarily having to reinvent the wheel. Some of those vendors are also very, very specific to building a website, helping you with service desk only, being a sales hub expert. There are specific sections that these vendors can help you with that are really, really, truly experts in these areas, and you guys need to do some of that research. It's not that difficult to go figure out which vendors they are, but there are vendors that are going to try and sell you just like HubSpot does, right? One of my biggest gripes is HubSpot sales team. If you guys have dealt with HubSpot sales team, it's a sales process, right? They sell you hard. So if you guys need help, if you guys want to have an extra set of ears, an extra fly on the wall through these meetings, feel free to drop me an email. Whatever I can help guide you, talk about whatever discussions you're going to have with HubSpot, please feel free to do it. I'm an email away. Or you can email Mike, and he's happy to take those emails from now on. No, I'm kidding. But whatever you guys need help with, I'm happy to jump on calls and help you guys through those conversations. Not many people are devious in this industry. It's pretty well thought through. And again, with HubSpot being the backbone of all of this, there's not a lot of people that can sort of overturn a lot of the things that HubSpot offers. So whatever you guys need help with, please, there's a ton of resources to help you with that. If you guys want to get in touch with me, let me know. Like I said, I'm a phone call away, an email away. I'm helping some AGAs already with HubSpot onboarding and integration. There's some bigger projects with the USGA that I'm working on. Some of the things here are going to shape how we think about this community going forward, and hopefully, if there's some help I can provide, please let me know. If there's some learnings that we can get out of this together, I'm happy to come back and do some learnings and share some of that insight that comes with that. That's all I had for today. I don't know if there's any specific questions that I can help answer or guide, or anything that you guys want to know specifically around certain HubSpot stuff. Robin?
So I know some people here have been Golf Nations users in the past as well. There have been times where, for example, we might need a development of a sort that would be useful for all the other associations. Is there an opportunity for us to just collectively come to you and say, hey, we have this project that we would like to do and we'd like to cost share to make it happen?
There are and before you jump out of the room, it's actually a great thing for obviously Tony and the joint, well, not joint strategy, but some of the group committee stuff that Tony is running to hear some of that and figure out if it's Stackery or other vendors out there to come in and build a joint tool plugin integration, whatever it may be, and approach vendors for that. So 100%. Yep. I mean, Golf Genius is a perfect example, right? The Golf Genius Sync or whatever they're calling it. You all, almost all, use Golf Genius. That would be if Golf Genius actually didn't build it, there would be a valuable proposition that say we 58 AGAs need Golf Genius integration. So need Golf Genius integration. Can we build it once and roll it out to all the AGAs? 100%.
Can I go?
You can go now. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.